Thank you for joining us today. So, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, and my name is Anastasia. I'm a student in Korea and also I work in Korean scientific institution.
And my name is Irina, and I also work in the Korea Institute of Science and Technology and study at the University of Science and Technology here in Seoul.
When did you come to Korea?
I came here 3 years ago.
I came to Korea this August.
Oh, this August. You study and work. So, what's your major area that you study and work?
My major is neuroscience, and I work on autism spectrum disorder. I work with mouse models of autism spectrum disorder.
Oh.
And as for me, my major is biomedical engineering and I work on target drug delivery and photodynamic therapy to treat the cancer, different types of cancer.
After you came to Korea, were you able to go back to your country, or you've been in Korea for 3 years for the straight?
I actually, because of the corona situation, I could not visit Ukraine as frequent as I would like to, but I was able to visit Ukraine last December. So I've spent there 3 weeks. So I came in December, left at the middle of the January of this year.
Oh, okay.
It was first time in 3 years.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe this February, but I didn't manage to visit it.
Oh. Where are you from in Ukraine? Which area?
I'm from Vinnytsia region. It's the center of Ukraine.
I'm from Kiev. It's the capital of Ukraine.
Okay. Can you explain about the current situation in Ukraine?
Basically, what Russian army is about to do, they are trying to occupy at least one of the big industrial cities like Mariupol, and they also want to take over the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. As some people say, their initial plan was to invade Kyiv, kill our president, and so then it would turn everyone into the panic. They wanted to put their new president instead. Yes, it sounds crazy.
I'm a pro-Russian president.
Oh. Yuromaidan. So there was a documentary in Netflix about that.
Yeah,
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Not really.
There was a lot of documentaries.
We lived that.
Oh, yeah. Were you there? How old were you at that time?
18. I was 18.
Oh.
I was only 13 by that time.
Oh.
And I only visited Maidan only once.
Oh. But you were there. Oh.
Only once, and that was pretty safe there by the time. So.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was forbidden for teenagers to be in Maidan, and elder people, they prohibit children to visit Maidan because it was really dangerous.
Oh, yeah. We hear a lot about the situation of Ukrainians who become refugees and do flee to other countries like Poland and other European countries. So, have you heard any news about those refugees going to Poland and European countries? Are they facing any difficulties, Ukrainian refugees in other countries?
With that information that we have for nowadays, more than 3 million people have left Ukraine so far, and they are mainly women and with children. We're receiving lots of Ukrainians, receiving lots of help from Polish government and also from some other countries. But for today, Poland, they already ran out of the spaces for Ukrainian refugees to stay. So we hope that other countries can help Ukrainians stay for at least a few months. So we hope that during these few months this war can end and they can safely come back.
That's actually a long and historical question to begin with. During the whole historical history of Ukraine, Ukraine and Russia were always in a state of war or conflict, maybe even 4 or 5 centuries, maybe. In Russia, there was Russian Empire, and Ukraine, some part of Ukraine were part of Russian Empire, and actually Ukrainians never wanted freely to be a part of Russian Empire, so that's why they were literally enslaved. They were enslaved in Russian Empire, and they tried to protest, to make revolutions against Russian Tsar. This was called Tsar, like a king, maybe. And the same was in the Soviet Union. In 1980, Ukraine finally got independence, and there was a huge army from Russia which entered Ukraine and literally occupy all our territories and killed a lot of people and a lot of poets and artists. So that's why I'm not sure why there is such imperialistic idea in Russia. Where is the roots of this idea? But that's obviously awful.
Regarding this current situation with Putin, especially that what happened 8 years ago when the Russian army annexated Crimea, it felt during that time, it happened right after Maidan revelation happened. And it happened right away after Yanukovych fled Ukraine because he was afraid to be killed by Ukrainian protesters. And it felt like Putin was getting in revenge on Ukraine for our democratic and our pro-European choice. So, and he used the situation when our country stayed without the president, so that they could invade Crimea, and after that they invaded Donbass and Luhansk.
As an excuse to invade Crimea and Donbass, they use the protection of Russian language Russian speakers in Ukraine. That was an excuse actually, and there was a lot of articles that's actually the wrong idea, because there is no discrimination of Russian language in Ukraine.
Most of Ukrainians can freely speak both Russian and Ukrainian. At the same time, Russian cannot use or even sometimes understand Ukrainian language well.
When they say they want to protect Russian speakers, they want to protect everybody in Ukraine. What does that mean? So,
I don't think we ever needed to be saved, because during these last 3 weeks, when your whole life runs through your eyes, you just realizing how good life was back then, and we never needed anyone to come to our land.
Yes, and actually my grandfather is Russian. He's actually died by this time because he was really old. But he was Russian and he was never discriminated, even though I was born on the territory close to Western Ukraine, and there is some kind of stereotype that Western Ukraine speaks only Ukrainian, and that they might discriminate Russian. That's not true actually.
Actually, it goes back to USSR situation when actually we were united in one country, about 30 years ago. And back then, lots of Ukrainians would leave Ukraine and leave to Russia just for their work. There were lots of Russians in that regions, and that was one of the things that Russian used for their argument, saying that we want to protect our Russian national people in there, which is actually never was true, because they lived happily. I remember that time when I visited Energodar when I was a kid, and everything was peaceful. Yes, everyone talked Russian. There was lots of people they moved from Siberia to live in Ukraine because they liked living in Ukraine more than living in like winter weather during whole year, but everyone was fine, just fine, and no one hated anyone.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
That's the thing. Ukrainians never had a hate for Russians before this war started.
What's your opinion about that? Do you talk a lot about like how we should do with the Putin and Russian for starting this war?
Well, he is war criminal. We still have to wait for international court in Hague to recognize him as a war criminal. But for Ukrainians, there is no such questions, I think.
During this 21 day of war, there were killed more than hundreds of kids. And we cannot, for now we cannot estimate how many civilians have died. But Ukrainian government stated that for now there were killed more among civilians than among our Ukrainian army. And what is that? This is a terrorism. There was a lot of examples where it was clearly seen that Russian army was aiming and killing civilians on purpose, just to create panic. Every Ukrainian is living the most horrorous part of their lives. So it's the biggest horror in your life when you're realizing that you can lose literally every person you ever knew, your parents, your siblings, your friends. And Ukrainians protecting the most precious things in their lives, their families. Therefore, we are fighting so hard against Russian army.
And also there were a lot of cases when Russian occupiers were aiming for pro-Ukrainian activists. So basically there were situations when they were literally exterminating them. So in Kherson region, actually Kherson is now taken under Russian occupiers. A lot of heroes of war on Donbass were killed.
But for sure, Ukrainian nation cannot forgive Russians for them committing those crimes. I cannot imagine how parents would feel when they would lose their child for such stupid, for someone doing so stupid, for someone just trying to testify some political things.
In Korea, when we hear news about Ukraine, we hear a lot about your president, that he stays in the country, and he spoke up that he would stay and fight against Russia, and also people who are in outside of the country, they do go back to fight against Russia. And how Ukraine feel about those stories?
We're absolutely proud of our president, Zelensky. He was not a politician by education, or he did not have lots of experience in this field. When he was elected as a president, lots of people were not sure if he can handle the situation fine. But he proved with his actions and that he is a real patriot of our country, and he would even sacrifice his life for defending our country, and we are proud for him for doing that, and all Ukrainians are really thankful. He showed that we can protect ourselves and we can win this war. Because we have no other choice. If we would not defend ourselves, there will be no Ukraine.
Also, he signed this famous quote, "I need a weapon, not a taxi." That was his quote to US government.
And also I would add that this is a situation when there's someone, it's literally like someone is robbing you. If you would give something to him, you think that it would stop it and he would be satisfied with it. But in reality, that person just learns that he can take something by force.
Do you have communication among Ukrainians usually in Korea?
We just like had Facebook groups, like Ukrainians in Korea. But since situation escalated, we created some chats for discussing how can we do demonstration or what can be helped, and we discussing some things like that.
So how many people usually go there?
We are allowed to bring 300 people
300.
because of some corona restrictions.
All Ukraine?
No, not really. We also some of people, some of our friends or even professors from our institute, they support us and they also come into demonstration with us. We're really grateful for that. And they're different people, they're businessmen. Yes, they have some working here, some of them are scientists working in Korea.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So every week you have a demonstration, which Sunday, right?
Or Saturday.
Sunday or Saturday. Oh, okay. People in Korea, Ukrainians in Korea, from different occupations and different ages, and join the demonstration. And what are the main demands to the Russian government, and what are the slogans that you usually use for the demonstration?
So our main slogans were we want to stop Russian aggression, and we want to stop Russians bombing Ukrainian cities. We are hoping that Korean government can support Ukraine on their decisions with regard to connection to some other worldwide governments. And we also asking from the Korean government and also private companies to stop trading with Russia. And unfortunately, sanctions are the only weapon that we can use here to strive and to deprive Russian terroristic regime from getting any income and any economical possibility to continue this war.
Do you think any other things that Korean citizens, like ordinary citizens, can do to support your, support your position on this?
Sure. Firstly, we created a petition to the Korean president, and we asking about putting more sanction in this petition, and also some economical sanction as well. And also there's another petition where we asking to give to Ukrainian army some supports, like some equipment. This is really necessary for us nowadays. And also there's a lots of funds that regular Koreans can support as well.
That'd be really good if you can share those information.
Sure.
Yeah, we can link to with the video. Yeah.
Yes, we have some QR codes
Oh, yeah.
for the bank accounts that our embassy has opened, especially for humanitarian help for children and for the wounded people.
Any other things that you want to share?
We just hope that worldwide community would recognize Russian terroristic regime actions as a genocide of Ukrainian nation and would do everything possible for helping Ukraine nowadays, because we need it so much. I think in the current situation, world should show with not only with their words, but with their actions, that we are ready to protect democratic grounds, and we are ready to protect lives of the regular people. And in 21st century, we cannot tolerate such predatory and terroristic regime as Russian.
Also, it is already a second genocide of Ukrainian people. The first one was in 1932 and 1933. Actually, and sadly, it wasn't recognized as a genocide. But I hope that this time world will recognize all of these crimes and will help Ukrainian to revive our country and to rebuild our country, because we will need a lot of help rebuilding our country.
And I forgot to ask you about your. You are wearing something special. Can you introduce your clothes?
Oh, this is a traditional Ukrainian dress, which is called vyshivanka. And this dress was presented to me by my mother last time I visited Ukraine.
I always wear something that represents Ukraine ever since the invasion has started. So it's the Ukrainian flag or anything that represents Ukraine. It's like my symbol of support, because at least I can do something.
Yeah, I think we really wanna join as well. Yeah, so really make sure if you share the information. Yeah, we'll sign the petition and
Thank you very much.
Donation and anything we can do. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and also beautiful ribbon.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
감사합니다. How do you say thank you in Ukraine?
Дякую.
Дякую.
Дякую.